Pybus University, where learning is a lifelong adventure. The Pybus Public Market is pleased to offer a series of unique and fun classes for the Wenatchee Valley community. Classes are taught by local volunteers with an interest and aptitude in the subjects that they teach.
The next service I want to talk about is Ancestry.com. Now, Ancestry.com, I have access to Ancestry.com, and that's what the pedigree of Ancestry.com looks like. And let's just simply go to that. I've got a tab here on my Chrome browser for Ancestry.com, and since I'm already logged into Family Search, then I am also logged into Ancestry.com. Now, Ancestry.com, if you have a subscription to it, like I do, you just simply go to your trees, look at whatever tree you want to look at, and there it is. So that's the pedigree, and if you click on anybody in the pedigree, like the one that I was looking at before, let's see, I was looking at my dad, wasn't I? Okay, I can go to his profile in Ancestry, and I can look at his vital information. It's presented in a little bit different fashion than Family Search, but nonetheless, it's there. You can look at just the facts, you know, birth, death, marriage, you know, family information. You can look at his life story. You can, if you've got photos in that up there, you can look at his gallery, that kind of thing. So Ancestry.com is really good for that. And as a matter of fact, Ancestry.com is really, really good for research purposes. And I'll be talking about that in a minute when we get there. But just like Family Search, Ancestry.com has the ability to put all of this vital information about your ancestors on the internet, in the cloud, and it's backed up and it's safe. Okay? How safe? Is anything perfectly safe? No, no. They take great pains in trying to make sure that it is. We'll talk about, there's a difference in philosophy of how Ancestry works versus how Family Search works with respect to their database. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, but I just want you to understand that Family Search and Ancestry.com and MyHeritage and Find My Past and a handful of other sites on the internet allow you to do the same thing. And what is that? Keep your records online in the cloud so that they're preserved and safe, okay? It doesn't, you don't have to keep up with anything, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. I hope you're getting the point here of what I'm trying to get across, because it's really an important point to make about what we're trying to accomplish here tonight, and that is give you kind of an introduction of what you can do, okay? But there's a little bit more to it than what you can do. The question is, why? Why would I want a computer other than, or why would I want to put my data somewhere else besides on my computer? I just mentioned part of the reason, but let's go down through some of the reasons why you may want to use an online service versus, or in addition to, your home computer. So, you know, let's just kind of read part of this. I currently use my own PC to do everything I want to do. Yes, you're using a home computer program on your computer. Doesn't have anything to do with the internet. Why would I want to use the internet or the cloud? Okay, here's some things, okay? Some things are better done collaboratively with several users helping one another. The ability to have many people working together is what the internet inherently provides. So, with the cloud's computers, databases, and software natively on the internet, the paradigm is flipped from the individual to the group and allows for a naturally collaborative experience. If you have your own home computer, or if you don't even have a computer at all, and you've got your information, which you really need to have in your file or in your notebook, if you've got just information in your notebook and it's at home and you're not on the internet and you're not on a computer that you'd exchange information with, that information is only in one place. And it's not helpful to anybody else except yourself. Well, that might be good for some people. They may prefer that. especially if they're afraid that somebody's going to find out that their Uncle Harry was a horse thief. If that really matters to them, I guess they want to keep their stuff really secure, you know, and not let anybody know, okay? But if your house burns down or whatever, that information's gone. It's gone forever. You can't get it back. I feel so sorry for some of those people like that just went through the floods down in Texas and Florida and whatnot. Those houses were destroyed, and their genealogical information, a lot of it that they had stored, thought it was good stuff. They thought it would never flood. That stuff's gone now. It's irreplaceable. You just can't get it back. So with the cloud, there is no need to keep track of multiple database versions. For those of you who have had like Legacy and Roots Magic and PAF and some of these other home computer programs, every year they want to have a new version, and so they want you to download another version, and when you download that version, it messes up something, and you have to call them, and all of this kind of stuff. When you have an online service like Ancestry or Family Search, you don't have to mess with that. They take care of all the software updates. You don't have to mess with it yourself. That's good. You don't have to keep track of multiple database versions and you know, all of that stuff. You leave it to the cloud service providers to do that. Now, without the cloud, you would have to combine, or if you wanted to share information with your Aunt Joe or Uncle Harry or whatever, and they're using Family Tree Maker and you're using Legacy and Roots Magic, how do you share information? Well, yeah, you can share it with GEDCOM files, which is something that you can get into and whatnot. But even at that, you lose information when you try to share something, or they got the wrong version, or you're using version 8 and they're using version 12, and all of this stuff. All of these problems develop because you're trying to communicate with others, and that's what we had to do back in the 80s and the 90s before the internet, before the online services. But now that we have online services, we don't have to worry about that so much. So without the cloud, you'd have to combine or resend or track multiple databases and determine who had which version. It's very time consuming, and does they match you with this information you fed them? Family Tree Maker keeps track of facts, like somebody's hobbies or what their occupation was. But, Roots Magic, that fact isn't in the transfer. So you lose all of that fact information when you go from one program to another. It's been a real problem over the years, and people just got really tired of it. And so they just tried to stay with that one program. And now, like Family Tree Maker, it's going out of business, and Ancestry Quest is going out of business, and that kind of a thing. And Roots Magic and Legacy are about the only two big ones left. MyHeritage, by the way, just bought Legacy, and that's good news, really. So,
Pybus University, where learning is a lifelong adventure. Are you wanting high-speed internet but don't have access to PUD fiber? Try Sky-Fi high-speed wireless internet from LocalTel. Call 888-8888 today. Pybus University, where learning is a lifelong adventure.
If you've got cloud services, you can work instantaneously with others, and you can farm out tasks and now all those other kinds of things to people, and you can both look at the same file, and nothing's going to be damaged or destroyed. And one of the big things about online versus a home is free storage. This is mostly with Family Search, but other programs too. You put your family tree up there, or your data up there on the internet, and it's stored there. I mean, you don't have to pay for that storage. If you are going to one of these paid sites like Ancestry or MyHeritage and you pay for their services, that's not paying for the storage. That's paying for the program and for being able to manage the storage. It's just, you have to pay for the storage separate. So you get free storage, and if you're with Family Search, you do get free storage, and everything's free there. You don't have to worry about backing up data. Like if you have a home computer program, it's automatically backed up when it's on the internet, okay? You don't have to worry about upgrades or patches or debugging new versions of programs that come along. Everybody that's had a computer for a while knows what the problems there are. When it's online, you don't have to deal with that kind of stuff. You can have access, if it's online, you can have access to that data anytime, anywhere, as long as you got an internet access, you know. And you don't have to worry about running a data center or firewalls or any of the security stuff, because that's all taken care of by the service, you know. So there's a lot of good reasons for having data online. So let's put that aside for just a second and just actually look at the database. This is some of the information that I wanted to share with you. I got about 20 minutes left. I think we can get through this. Here's a home computer program, like Legacy or Roots Magic, okay? There's the computer. The computer has a hard disk. That's kind of like what I'm showing there in the middle. And on the hard disk is data, okay? And that data, in this particular case, we're looking at a legacy file, and the males are blue and the females are red. This is a data file that's kept on this computer, and there's nothing wrong with it. What kind of a database is that, though? The method that we're called here is that there's only one record per line item in that database, okay? And that's called a merged record. Merging you can't have the same two people in that file. You can only have one person in that file. You have a lot of people in the file, but each person is unique in that merged database. This is kind of important, because I'm going to draw this distinction between your online services and the home computer. The home computer, like Roots Magic and Legacy, are merged records. There's one entry for each person. You don't have multiple people in there. One entry per each person. That's a merged database. And that's, like Legacy or Roots Magic or PAF or any of these home computer programs, they manage that data in a merged fashion, one record per individual. If you look at an online service like Family Search, for example, this Family Search database here is really kind of interesting. I'd like to talk to you just for a second about this, because if you look at this area, let me see, how can I explain this better? Family Search is not a database. Family Search is a collection of databases, okay? The main database in Family Search is called Family Tree, okay? But Family Search also has a number of other databases. It has the Memories database. What in the world is that? Well, that's the database that keeps track of all of the photographs and documents that you upload to Family Search. Family Search also has genealogies. Now, if you submitted your GEDCOM file to Family Search, or your pedigree resource file to Family Search, anybody that wants to submit something to Family Search as a GEDCOM file, GEDCOM, we don't need to talk about that, but it's a way to transfer genealogical data from one place to another. Any program, every single program out there, whether it's Family Tree Maker or whether it's Roots Magic or Legacy, any of these home computer programs can create a GEDCOM file of all of your information. It won't copy your photographs, it won't copy your scanned documents, but it will put all of the vital information into a file, and that file can be sent to, in this case, it can be sent to the LDS Church to put in Family Search, and that GEDCOM file stays in there, and you can compare that with what you have in the Family Tree database to see if you need to add anything or subtract anything from it. One of the important things about Family Search, or even Ancestry.com, when we get to it in just a second, is that the database part, the family tree part of the Family Search collection, is a merged database. It's online, it's not on your home computer. This is Family Search. The family tree portion of Family Search is a merged database. In other words, the LDS Church have decided that one person has one record in the database. That's it. If there's more than one record for that person, then it must be a duplicate, and it's your job to try to fix that. So there's one record per each individual. The LDS Church's goal is to have everybody in the whole world that has ever existed to be in this huge database, and there's only one entry for each person. Okay? And there's a whole bunch of data for that person. You know, birth, death, life, you know, all of this kind of stuff. Photographs and all of that stuff, but there's only one record per person, okay? That's the philosophy, and it is a philosophy. It's a policy philosophy of the Family Search Family Tree database. Now, the other databases in Family Search, like the Genealogies database or the books in the Family History Library in Salt Lake, or the catalogs, and especially things like the Historical Records Archive, those are not merged records. Some of them may be. They're just lists of things. Census records, you know, all sorts of different kinds of records, land records, you know, ships records, all of those kinds of records. Most of them are just lists. And if you have a list, there's a very possibility that there's duplications in that list of various people, like a census record. I mean, look at a census record compare the 1940s and 50s and 60s, you know, census records that we don't have access to yet, but back in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, we do have census records. Sometimes those records have people in them, and usually it's just one person in there, and that might be considered a merged record. But if you have records of just lists of people that have shopped at your store, for example, you could be in that list 100 times if you shopped at that store 100 times, okay, along with everybody else. That's an unmerged record database. They're unmerged. That means that they haven't been merged into one record per individual. There's many individuals. And so the important thing to note there is that Family Search Family Tree is a merged database, one record per individual, okay?
Pybus University, where learning is a lifelong adventure.
For all the latest news in North Central Washington, go to ncwlife.com or find us on Facebook. Got a news tip? Email us at news@ncwlife.com or call 888-2020.
Pybus University, where learning is a lifelong adventure.
Now, why am I making that big point? Because when you get to the online service called Ancestry.com, which many of us use, that's an unmerged database. The reason I say unmerged is because family, the tree part of the main part of Ancestry.com, as you can see, the main database in Ancestry.com is, and I've tried to draw this out, but Ancestry.com's main database, remember Family Search, their main database is merged, one record per individual. But Ancestry is an unmerged database. That means that there are zillions of duplications in that. When you create a family tree in Ancestry.com, that tree is put into a large database of a whole bunch of everybody else's trees, okay? So the main database in Ancestry.com is a collection of a whole bunch of trees from everybody, whoever creates their tree in Ancestry. So if you submit a tree to Ancestry and your sister and your brother submits their own trees to Ancestry.com, every single one of those people that submit their trees to Ancestry has listed their parents in their own tree. And so, you know, your mother, they're all the same mother. But there's 4 or 5 different trees that have been submitted to Ancestry.com. So your mother, you know, because of brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and cousins and that have all submitted their trees, that particular common relative, like a mother or a father, could be duplicated 1,000 times in there, okay? That's the philosophy or the policy that Ancestry.com decided to maintain and create their database around, is an unmerged database. When you're looking at your tree in Ancestry.com, you're looking at one person in your tree, say your grandfather. Well, somebody else in your family has also got that grandfather in their tree. You can do a search and you can find all of the trees that have your grandfather in them, okay? Now you can't change their tree, but you can change your tree. So if they've got good stuff in theirs and your stuff is just kind of marginal, you can use their stuff to fix your stuff. That's the philosophy of Ancestry.com. Collaboration. Take everybody else's tree, look for that information, that common ancestor, and see who's right, you know? And then if your uncle allows you to edit their tree, then that's something that they have to allow before you can do any changes. If they allow you to edit, then you can change that information. But if they don't allow you, then all it is a read-only. You can't change their data, you can just look at it. And sometimes that's good because you can pull that data into yours to fix your data, especially if you don't have that person. And a lot of people out there in Ancestry have all sorts of pedigrees of their information, and that's what Ancestry is all about. Look in their pedigrees, they've done all the work, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You go look at their stuff, and their stuff may have something that you use in yours. So you copy their stuff to your stuff, and now you've got a better tree. But nonetheless, Ancestry.com is still a collection of a whole bunch of trees. Now, granted, when they made that decision, it's going to cause this database to be absolutely humongous because of the duplications of people. But they knew that going into it. Just like Family Search decided to do it differently, they're going to have a merged database that has one person, and then people look at that one person and they link to that person for their own tree, but there's still that one person in the database. And if there's any duplications in there, it's because there's errors and they haven't merged those people together. So the whole idea of Family Search is to try to get everybody to collaborate and merge that information so that one person in that merged database has the best information available. Then you can link to that person for your own tree. It's not part of your tree, it's a link to that person. Major difference between the two programs, just a different philosophy. There's nothing wrong with it, it's not good or bad, it's just different. And that's one of the things that you need to understand about Online Tree. It's a good place to store stuff. Most of the online services, MyHeritage, Find My Past, they are unmerged. In other words, you just send your tree in and you have control over your tree but nobody else's. One of the things about Ancestry and Family Search is the fact of living people. You can only put living people into your tree in Ancestry, and you can only put living people into your tree in Family Search. Nobody else can see those living people. That's a security, personal privacy issue. Dealing with living people in all of these databases is an issue. It really produces duplicates all over the place, but there's no way around it. No matter whether you're in Ancestry with unmerged records or you're in Family Search with merged records, it doesn't matter. Living people are going to cause a problem. That's just one thing to be understanding. Genealogy is more about dead people than living people. If you want to keep track of living people, you should do that with your own home computer. That's the best place to do it. You can keep track of living people online in Ancestry and in Family Search, but nobody else can see them. But that's okay. We don't want them to see them, usually, because that's privacy information, you know.
Pybus University, where learning is a lifelong adventure.
Please join us weekly for the 12th District with yours truly, Kerry Condata. Check your channel guide for times or go to ncwlife.com for details.
Pybus University, where learning is a lifelong adventure.
All right, so back to the drawing board here. When all is said and done, what is it that I do? Okay, I'm supposedly, got some experience in this thing. What do I do? Okay, this is what I do. I personally, now what I'm about to say is not necessarily right or wrong, it's just what I do, okay? My opinion, and it may be worth something to you, it may not be. I use Family Search as my primary record collection site for individuals and their documents and sources. I use Legacy, the Legacy Family Tree is the official name, as my home computer program, mainly for quick reference, usually for living people. I try to ensure that my legacy records match those in Family Search. Like I showed you earlier, it's really easy to make those things match. You just copy from one to the other. It's really easy. I use Ancestry mainly for research purposes. I also import my data from Family Search to Ancestry periodically for reference purposes and to help others who might be searching for their records in my tree that may not use Family Search. So I keep my genealogy in Family Search primarily, but I also copy it over to Ancestry.com periodically just for helping other people. I use MyHeritage and Find My Past and other internet websites mainly for research. I don't maintain a family tree on those sites. So I have 3 trees that I maintain. Actually, really only maintain 1 because my primary site is Family Search, and I copy over to Ancestry whatever I have in Family Search, and I copy from Ancestry over to my Legacy home computer program in that order. You can't create a GEDCOM file in Family Search, but Ancestry can create its own GEDCOM file from Family Search. So you can pull that data from Family Search into Ancestry, and then you can take that Ancestry data and pull it into your home computer program. So I have 3 places where my genealogy records are stored. One of them is the primary place, though I'm always putting new stuff into there. But then I copy over to Ancestry, and then I copy over to Legacy. That's what I do, okay? Now I, or we, my wife mainly, but as I mentioned earlier, we keep a hard copy of a lot of the stuff that we've done. And I showed you that earlier in our notebook here. So really I have 4 sources of my information. 2 of them are online in the internet cloud, Family Search and Ancestry. 1 of them is on my personal computer, Legacy. That's what I do. And I try to stay up on the latest programs and the internet cloud services that might be helpful to me and my family to maintain and share our efforts in genealogy. So that's what I do. Now, step 7, the last thing that you should do, at least in my presentation tonight, is to know and use your local family history center or a genealogical society. And that's what we're here all about. And WAGS is we have a website, and it's right there, wags.web.org. The website is mentioned several times in our handout over here. You can grab one of those little brochures with the apple on the front. It has our website address there if you want to go to. We've got tons and tons of records of information in the local area here as well as nationally. Very interesting. Now what is WAGS? Where is it? It's in the museum annex at Yakima on Mission. You know, if you've ever been down Mission Street and saw our coyote out there on the steps of the museum annex, that's where we're at. As a matter of fact, our office is like 15 feet right behind the coyote, okay? That's where we're at. And, you know, we're open Tuesdays and Saturdays. If we had more volunteers, we'd be open every day of the week. But you know how volunteers for volunteer organizations go. Inside the library, over there at WAGS, that's what it looks like in the main section. And we have a scanning section in the back. So we've got lots and lots of documents. And we're in the process of getting more documents online, that kind of thing. And we're scanning a bunch of stuff and that kind of thing. And that's what I'm helping the library do. Now, before we get away from this, I want to mention the fact that we do have a need for people to volunteer their services. What or who is the Family History Center, FHC? The Family History Center, you should know this already, but if you don't, they are branches of the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's operated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the LDS Church, more commonly known as Mormons. The centers supply resources for research and study of genealogy and family history. As of 2015, there were more than 4,800 family history centers in 134 countries. Now, there are small, medium, and large family history centers. The large regional family history centers are usually library class facilities designated as true branch libraries of the Salt Lake City Family History Library. And family history centers are established with hours of operation and are open to members of the LDS Church and non-members. As a matter of fact, our local family history center is 667 10th Street Northeast. It's the LDS Church up there, just east of Eastmont on 10th. And our family history center is in this little building you can see to the right there, with the door, with the little white door there. We're on the west side of the building, right there at that church. And when you get there to visit us, just knock on the door or ring the doorbell there, and you can come right in. You don't have to go through the church at all. It's just right there.
Is that where you're at on Tuesdays and Saturdays?
I'm there on Wednesday nights. The Tuesdays and Saturdays thing is for WAGs. That's at the Museum Annex downtown Wenatchee. The LDS Family History Center is in East Wenatchee on Eastmont and 10th, or just east of Eastmont and 10th. Now, inside the Family History Center, you can see a couple of pictures there. We have 12 computers, and we have microfilm readers and microfiche readers, but mostly the computers. And like I mentioned earlier, if you don't have access to a paid subscription to Ancestry.com, and you're not LDS, come to the Family History Center, because we have a free library access to the Ancestry.com, and you can use it, as well as MyHeritage and Find My Past. Find My Past is mostly English stuff. So if you're really looking for a lot of English records, Find My Past is the English record maintaining group.
You mean from Great Britain?
Yes, Great Britain. Mostly the UK, but they do have some records of other European areas. Find My Past is that. MyHeritage is mostly US stuff, and of course Ancestry and Family Search has got records from all over the world. There's tons of research capability there in Ancestry.com as well as Family Search, and you should, when you get a chance, use that. And you can do it from right at home if you want to do Family Search. But if you want to do some of the more records, come, and if you don't have a subscription to Ancestry, come over to the Family History Center. As a matter of fact, there are more non-LDS members that use the Family History Center than there are members that use it. That's an interesting fact, that more people are learning that there's some resources over there that are, free computer use. I mean, it doesn't cost anything to use those resources over there, and it's there for your use.
Pybus University, where learning is a lifelong adventure.
Stay up to date with what's happening in North Central Washington. Go to the NCW Life Community Calendar at ncwlife.com.
Pybus University, where learning is a lifelong adventure.
One of the last things that I want to leave to you, if nothing else that I said tonight means anything to you, maybe this last thing will. There's a handout over here called Family Relationships. And, it's one of the most common things. This particular slide is on the back of that, and on the front of that, or whichever side of the fence you're on, is this side. Now, you've all heard of expressions like, it's my 5th great grandchild, second removed. What does that mean? What does all that mean? Okay, so I've given you a chart here that you can understand really what that means. So going backwards here, the easiest way to use the chart here is like in the bottom 2 paragraphs there. You find the common ancestor. Okay? Common ancestor means if you're looking for somebody, let's look on this chart here just for a second. Get my marker here. Okay, here's where the common ancestor is. Let's say that your common ancestor is your father. Okay. Well, if the person you're looking for, the name of that relative, is a brother of yours or a sister of yours, then you go to the child of the common ancestor is your father. Okay. The one person goes across the top, and if you're a child of your father, and then the person and you are a child of your father, then guess what? You're a brother or a sister. Okay, just think of it in terms of that. Okay. Now, let's say that you run across somebody in your family that looks like that they're a child of your great-grandfather. Okay, well, you're either a child or a grandchild, okay? So if it's a child of your great-grandfather, you go back to the common ancestor, and which would that be? Let's say somebody claims that they're a child of the grandfather, okay? So what is the common ancestor, okay? They are a child of a grandfather, okay? So if you go to this, then it's a great grandchild, okay? That's the person you're looking for, okay? Because of that, what are you to that person? If that is your if the great grandchild is claimed, then how do you claim that? Okay. Well, it's your great grandchild. The common ancestor would be the great grandchild. You're a great grandchild too. Okay. So then you look at where they're intersect here, and you discover that they're your second cousin. Okay. Now you have to look at this and pay attention to it a little bit and kind of follow it across in order to understand it a little bit. But the key to this whole thing is to find the common ancestor. That's the key, because how you relate to these people is based on where you sit in the scheme of things. You have to kind of think about this and draw some circles like I just did to try to figure out what the name is, because then you can discover that, okay, you're a third cousin once removed, okay? Well, what would be the common ancestor then? Well, this would be the second great grandchild of, and you're a third great grandchild, and therefore they are a third great grandchild once removed. Okay, so that's kind of how you get this. I thought you might want to keep this in your records, just because it might be a fun little thing to try to figure out one of these days. Because a lot of people kind of wonder, what in the world do these things mean? Okay, and that's certainly a way to do it. Okay, so now. With that in mind, I need to shut this thing down, if I can. There's blank sheets over there for the family group sheets, the pedigree chart, the list of questions to ask family members, and the relationship chart that I just talked about. And that's it for my presentation. So.
Pybus University, where learning is a lifelong adventure.
Have a fun video you'd like to see featured on NCW Life? Email us at newsphotos@ncwlife.com.
Pybus University, where learning is a lifelong adventure.
So I'll take some questions if there may be some. Ma'am.
I have come across the word keep in association with certain family members with athletes.
Say that word again.
Keep, K-E-E-P.
Keep.
It's like Susan Keep, Cutright. Her husband was maybe Sam Keep, Cutright. And why that word keeps in there, I have not been able
It doesn't ring a bell with me. Anybody else hear of that? K-E-E-P? Keep? I'm not really sure what that means. I'll have to look that up. I'm not sure. Can't answer that. Sorry. Yeah, interesting. It might be of something that, what nationality would that be in, maybe?
Mostly, Dutch, English, it's
Some of
pretty
the British Isles kind of a thing, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well,
much-
maybe.
These were some of the first ones that were way back in Virginia
Yeah.
once upon a time.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look that up.
On Ancestry, you were talking about all these family trees on there.
Yes,
And there's like 4 or 5 different family trees with the same information.
Yes.
And 4 of them have the wrong information. How do you get it corrected?
how do you know that it's wrong?
Well, I mean, like I know when my mom was born and everything. On
How do you know that you know what your mom was born? What's the source? Okay, there you go. You've got the source data, okay?
Yeah, but
Excellent.
on this other site, they have her listed as something else on their other tree.
Do they have a source for that?
I don't know.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. It's a
All
guess.
the information you get off there, you don't know if it's true or not.
That's the problem that we have in collaboration, and that's why we need to contact those people and say, hey, look, you say this, but I have the source document, and here's a copy of it, and you need to correct your information based on it. And they say, oh, well, thank you for that. Or they can say, it's none of your business. They have that option. So, sometimes you run across people like that, but,
This doesn't happen on Family Search, does it?
yes, it does. Yeah, it happens on Ancestry as well as Family Search because we're all trying to collaborate and correct information. And somebody claims that their information is better than somebody else's. And the only way to prove that is with source documentation. If you can't get the source documentation, then it's anybody's guess. And we don't want to be guessing in genealogy. We want it to be correct. And that's why I haven't talked about it yet, and I'm not an expert on it. I'm not even a novice on it. But, in the last 10 years, this DNA searching stuff has come up. And it's getting better and better all the time. You can, for $100, you can submit a copy of your saliva to these DNA sources, 23andMe and Now MyHeritage and Legacy is doing that same thing, and others. And you can get some information that might be helpful to you in the DNA arena, which is another thing that's useful in genealogical research. How useful, it can't get particularly down to, unless you pay for it, can't get down to really knowing whether the person's your father or not, biological father or biological mother. I mean, you can't get down to that, at least yet, unless you get some DNA evidence from some people. But just the records out there, they can get you pretty close. They can get you within family lines, and it's not bad information. I've done some reading on it, but not much. But it's something that's coming. It's up and coming, and it's pretty good information for genealogists to deal with.
Do any of the websites or searches have anything like service records?
Any service records for what?
Service records for the certified military.
Oh yes, a lot of them. Yes, yeah, yeah. Yeah, FOLD3, Fold 3. It's a website that has military records. Ancestry has military records. Family Search has got some Civil War, and it depends on what war you're talking about. If the people, there's some Vietnam records available for people that were killed in Vietnam. There's some for even now. There's some. I've seen a few records for Desert Storm, the 1991 Iraqi thing. There's some of those kinds of things that are just starting to come out that the archives are putting out. So you just have to keep your eyes open for that kind of stuff. So.
Muster records from the Confederate War, when they went in, when they got out.
Yeah, there's a lot of Civil War stuff available online.
But it's a paid service too.
Some of them are paid, some of them are not.
Well, you can get some free, but mostly it's paid.
Yes.
National Archives is free, and they have lots.
Yeah, it's amazing how much information is available out there just for looking. So.
If you come to the library when we're open, there's usually somebody there that's off the top of their head says, oh, have you been to, I know, a
One of the benefits that you get out of being a member of WAGS is to be able to come to our meetings, bring up those kind of questions. There's a good possibility that somebody in the room has had that need for, World War II records from, one of the South Sea Islands or something. Where do you find that information? Where do you, somebody that might be looking up African American kinds of things when they're true African Americans, meaning they're from Africa and not, a descendant of those folks. When you're looking for those records, where do you, I had somebody come in Family History Center, a few months ago looking for records for Nigeria. I was at a loss, so I had to do some research, and I found some records online that, wasn't helpful, but at least, so there are records available for various kinds of things, even in the, in the darkest places of Africa, or there's some Russian and things, and some even haven't had an opportunity to do much Chinese or Far Eastern kind of things, but some of those records are available, and it's kind of hit and miss, but if you're Western world stuff, the United States, the United Kingdom, the European kind of thing, there's lots of records for that, and it's just a matter of time before you can do your detective work and get down to the information that you really need.
It is interesting. I traced one relative back into somewhere in Europe. Anyhow, mostly Ireland, and some of it's pretty identifiable, but then it gets flaky at a point, and then
Yep.
it's like we go back to Magog.
Yeah.
That was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Some of that stuff is really interesting. Every single one of us that have family lines that we've tried to trace, we run across roadblocks. I've got a great-grandfather roadblock that I can't find anything. It came from France, and I haven't been able to find anything. But, we'll run across roadblocks, but that doesn't mean you should stop. Some of the do's and don'ts of genealogy is don't get discouraged. If you get run across a roadblock, go to some other family line and start doing some, when you find some things, it gives you some really incentive to keep finding things, because it is, like you say, it becomes an addiction. To do detective work is really kind of a very rewarding thing, so.
Well, and WAGS is starting focus groups now. We have one going on Roots Magic. All Roots Magic users get problems in any one of those kind of programs, and we're starting focus groups for those individual programs.
Yeah. WAGS has webinars from time to time. We just had one yesterday on using tax records. So it's very good organization to be a member of. $25 or $30 a year, depending on whether you want individual or group membership. There's even a $15 student thing for somebody that's a student, high school or college. So it's a good place to go to get information. Anything else?